Ethan, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to dive in with you. So we've actually been in each other's lives very, very regularly over the last 18 months or so. And I've gotten to know your business very well. I've gotten to know you very well on a personal level because you're part of the Skeleton Key Mastermind. And I just love what you've been able to build for yourself at such a young age. I think I forget, and I've said this to you before, I forget sometimes how young you are. You're what, 23 now?
Yep, 23.
So officially 23. You've built a successful business, you're married, you own the home you live in. Like so rarely does somebody do that at 23. Are you even aware of that yourself?
I try not to get myself so caught up into it because I'd rather just keep on striving, like running my own race in a sense. And I'd rather see it that way rather than getting caught up and be like, oh, everybody else, like, what are they doing? And it's just more so focused in on that piece.
No, I love that. And I love, obviously that leans into the drive and determination you have to build the life that you desire, right? And I'm sure you hear it all the time, like, "Oh my God, you're so young! I can't believe you're doing all this stuff," and you take it so humbly, right? But I just want to acknowledge that because the success you've built in such a short amount of time is really unmatched because it wasn't that long ago that you were working at an auto spa. Tell, Bring us through the journey a little bit for you of being an employee at this place, finding your mentor at the time, and then leaning into entrepreneurship and growing a six figure business for yourself. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was always into cars, always wanted to be around cars, love cars, and kind of like a fast forward in a sense of like being at a place where I essentially dreamt of these cars and actually being at that place. But rewind back a little bit. Um, Getting into the car wash, that was my first job, and I worked there for about 6.5 years, and I knew I wanted better for myself, and I just didn't know exactly what. How do I expand upon it? I didn't know. My mom worked as in network marketing companies, and my dad, he always worked in dealerships. He had his a small business here and there, but they were always just like kind of shied me away from that. My mom was a little bit more encouraging, um, but it essentially came into a gentleman that came into the car wash. He was like, he gave me a $20 bill. He's like, do better. I know you're meant for more.
Mm.
Dang, bro, I know I'm meant for more, but I don't know exactly how to get there. So whatever triggered into me, he came in. He was always a weekly, and I took the $20 bill and gave it back to him. I said, "Hey, can we Get together for some coffee, chat this over?" He's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So long story short, we connected from there, got together, and really honed in on what I'd really like to do with my life. And I knew that I didn't want to stay at a car wash for at that point 50 years. So working my life away at the car wash, that may be a life to live for some, but that wasn't the life for me. And I wanted to take that and run with it. So we landed upon car detailing. It was like the fastest way to start up, and it got my feet wet in business. And now I'm drenched in it. Here we are, 3 years in, and we're kicking.
Yeah, dude, and it's crazy to know that this is the moment that changed your life, right? One guy going, "Hey, there's so much more that you should be doing." Right? He saw the potential. Although I hate the word potential. I think it's overused, but he saw the word potential in you, or he saw the word potential. He saw the potential in you in order to go out there and really create the life that you wanted for yourself. Because, like you said, you weren't exposed, especially in Berks County, you weren't exposed to people who thought at a higher level, people who operated at a higher level. Talk a little bit about the importance of curiosity and asking the right questions.
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that question, that right question. If you're not curious, you're just holding yourself back from what you could truly go after. If you go into a room and you're just like, snuggle in and be like, I know everything, then what are you doing? Like, you're just holding yourself back from learning and going to the levels that you can't even imagine for yourself. Like, for example, I can speak for myself. Every room that I go into, I'm always looking to learn something, always listening for what other people have to say. Now, I'm not saying if you walk into a room and find a druggie and you're just like, oh yeah, how'd you build your drug business? I mean, you might be able to learn something, but not the legal way in a sense. I mean, maybe there's some legal tactics in there, but
Well, now with
anyway,
the weed dispensaries, there is some drug dealing that's now legal. You can make a lot of money doing that stuff.
that's true. It's true. But just being curious is huge. If you're just walking around like you know everything and you're not questioning and furthering your knowledge, you're gonna be stuck. I mean, so go out there, be curious, and learn. Always keep learning.
Yeah, one
Always
thing I
keep
like
learning.
about you is that you leave your ego at the door. There's no sense of like, oh no, I know what I'm doing now because you've created success. It's constantly exploring how do I continue to level up. Obviously, this didn't happen overnight for you, but where did that come from? The sense of leaving the ego at the door, not being worried about asking questions that might make you look like you don't know what you're doing. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of people in business specifically. I'm going to talk about this a lot. How the reason the beginning part of entrepreneurship is so lonely is because people are afraid to reach out and ask for help because they want to pretend like they're even more successful than they are, right? And so they don't want to find themselves in a place where they're vulnerable. So where did you learn to leave your ego at the door and be vulnerable about the journey you're in order to make sure you're moving forward?
Absolutely. It really started when I was in school, and I wasn't always that way. I had all these business ideas. I honestly, this wasn't like my first business venture. I had multiple, attempts and trials of just the random stuff like drop shipping or like an apparel brand. And I always shut myself down because of the kids in school being like, what are you doing? You're selling some stupid t-shirts. And the one brand I remember was called Sauce. He's like, no one's going to buy a shirt that says sauce on it. I really got shut down by it because I was like, what? What do you mean? Like I thought this was the greatest thing in the world. Sauce, you got the sauce. Um, so all throughout school, I let that take hold of me, and until I got past that, and it was pretty much during COVID when everyone was graduating, and it was a weird graduation. It was all outside, and no one could be, within 6 feet of one another.
Yo, keep in mind,
And
like this is hold on, this is the perfect example. You were still in high school during COVID.
yeah, dude, last
That is
year, the last year of high school.
That is crazy. Sorry, continue. So at your graduation.
Yeah, at my graduation. And I looked around, I was just like, you gotta be kidding. Everyone's gonna go out and do their own thing anyway. Why was I holding myself back, wondering about what these people are gonna think? But I'm not even gonna really touch base with them more than likely ever. And if I have, for example, they've come and supported my business. So it's like, what the heck was I doing? Wondering about starting up an apparel brand or anything like that, being scared what they had to say. And ever since then, I mean, of course, I have moments where I'm like, oh, shoot, what are they going to say? And I'm like, who cares what they think? It's all
Yeah.
good. We're going to keep on going anyway. So it's just reminding myself of that if it does come up into my head, and then it's just pushing it back and just being like, oh, who cares?
Yeah. And the company they have now, like you mentioned, it's a car detail business. But I think what sets you apart is, and lack of a better word, is your attention to detail, number one. Number two, your ability to deliver customer service above and beyond. Right. Like when we got my wife's car done, there was a note thanking her in the car, and there were muffins in there, and all these little things as far as like taking the customer service to the next level of things you don't have to do, right? The service that's being paid for you did, but then you went above and beyond. Talk a little bit about why it's important for you to pay attention to so much detail and then also always over deliver.
Absolutely. If we didn't pay attention to the small things, how are we going to handle the big things? if you're not taking care of the small stuff, like the little stuff that you don't even necessarily want to do, there's going to be people that notice that. And it's going to come out in the larger things. Like, say, like with you holding a huge event, if you didn't pay attention to the name tags or anything like that, or just just the minute little details, or who's going to DJ, I mean, the event would be a wash. But the event is huge and just absolutely killer. So if you're not paying attention to the small details, pay attention to them. Look back
Yeah.
and really focusing on them.
Yeah, dude, and it's funny because sometimes when we're doing something for the first time, we don't even know what those small things are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so like you have to go in from a place of imperfection, right? Like I remember when I hosted my first event back in 2019, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? Like what I was building was based off of all these other events that I attended and taking the little pieces that I liked and putting them into place. But then you don't think about all those little logistics and you don't think about all those things. But for you, you kind of had the lead in working at AutoSpot to go, well, these are the little things. These are the things that people care about. And then your love of cars and the importance of keeping your car clean that is transformed into the killer service that you guys provide because you've had that introduction into being able to know what the small things are. What are the things people might notice later? What are the things that they might not notice, but this will help them perform better, right? You talk a lot about clean car, clean mind. What does that mean to you? Like, why is that such an important message for you?
That is a great message that we deliver. I don't do that to toot my own horn and be like, oh, yeah, you're doing such a great job. But I truly believe that if you don't have a clean space, you're not going to be able to focus. You're so focused on all this stuff thrown everywhere. Maybe you don't necessarily think of it right away, but it's still in your subconscious of this is a dirty space and it's still running in the back of your head and you're not be able to fully focus or even just have complete peace in the space you're in. So if you're able to, even if it's just your 5-10 minute commute or if it's an hour commute, then you have that entire space that is clean and you're able to just relax. Whether you're listening to a podcast like this, listening to music, or just honestly silence driving. I personally love that. Just driving in silence and just really just soaking it all in.
So there's a quote that I hear all the time, which is how you do one thing is how you do everything. Uh, I don't know if it's necessarily true, but there's a lot of people who find it to be very, very true. And you're somebody who goes all in on everything, right? You're in super great shape. You really focus in on your marriage and your business, and you pay attention to the small details because you know that it's important. Is that how you approach everything in your life? Is going, okay, these small things will lead to bigger and better things? Like, why is your health such a priority? Why is your wife and the happy household such a priority? Like, what is your mindset when it goes to, keeping all of that clean in many different ways, right? The body clean, the marriage clean, all those things. Why is that such a priority?
That really just holds back to my core values. Like I was grew up in the Christian church. Now I didn't always hold true to it, and I didn't actually know what it all meant until really right before I met my wife. That's why I really started to like dive in into what it all meant, and the Christian values really just makes me, I don't know, a better person for lack of better words. And that's what I really like want to focus on is those values, and those values happen to line up with taking care of my temple, taking care of my home, taking care of my wife, and make sure that I'm taking care of business and I'm taking care of the people that are around me. And I want to be a servant leader to those around me and serve of service. And if I'm not doing that, then I feel like I'm letting down who God wants me to be.
Mm, yeah, that's powerful. When when did the faith take a turn for you for the more positive, and why do you think it happened when it did happen?
It was definitely the summer of 2020, and that's when I got baptized, and it was a public declaration of my dedication to to Christ and my walk essentially. And that's when I was like, all right, this is it. We're doing it.
Yeah. What's your biggest fear, right? Like I think that we all have a fear of some kind, whether it's disappointing somebody we love or failure, or some people it's the fear of public speaking, or everybody has the biggest fear. What do you think at 23, a man who's conquered a lot, what is your current biggest fear?
I think what I said earlier of just disappointing God. Like I don't want to come to the end of my life. I know Ed Milet says this a lot of coming to the end of your life and like here's what you could have accomplished and here's where you landed. Like I don't want to land over here and where this is where like, hey, this is the plans I had for you, and you dropped the ball.
Yeah,
So I think that would be my biggest fear.
I think, the first time I heard Ed say that, I saw a clip or whatever. And I was like, that's such a powerful statement, right? Like the idea that what if this happens, right? What if when we die, God shows you who you were supposed to be? And his whole thing is like, I work every day to make sure that I become that person in my lifetime. Because, at the end of the day, however you want to define it, right? Like we have one shot at this human life. And we need to make the most of it. And it is being true to ourselves and paying attention to the details and understanding that, to walk in, whether it be faith or whatever you believe in, to stay true to that. Like I think that that's super key, right? And you talk a lot about your core values. What are your core values? What are the things that you focus on so much where if you miss a beat, you might lose sleep that night?
Yeah, absolutely. So first is loving God and making sure I'm staying locked in with that relationship there, and then loving others. And if I'm not showing love to others, if I slip up and I'm just like in a mood, or I'm like, ugh, screw these people. If I let that push through and get to other people, I'm gonna be like, dang, I really let that person down. Like I didn't show them that love and compassion and servant heart to them. And if I don't do that, like I don't necessarily lose sleep over it, but it definitely makes me like stir a little bit about it and be like, all right, I can do better from that and forward from there.
So I want to ask you a question that I ask every single person on the show. It's a two-part question. Obviously I get to sit down and interview some of the world's most successful people, however you want to define success. So the question is, the first part is, how do you define success? What's your definition of success? And the second part is, what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Definition of success is being in alignment with what God has called me to be, and with that, impacting as many lives as possible. I think that's a fair statement.
It's a great definition for sure. So what are the three things you do every day to ensure that success?
Absolutely. So, first thing in the morning, I make sure I'm praying and then diving into the Bible. That gets me locked in, and just the inner peace is just like locked in, and we're good to go. I'm not going to let anything affect me. And if it does, it goes away real quick. Um, and then, second, I set my gratitudes. I set my gratitudes like make sure that I'm waking up grateful, because it's very easy to just be like wake up and be like, oh, another day, like got to get up and just lay in bed. You're just sitting there and just so it gets me excited for the day. I'm like, you know what? I have so much to live for. Why
Mm.
would I just sit here, lay in bed when I have so much to live for? And that keeps me locked and loaded. And then the third thing that keeps me locked and loaded is looking throughout the day, just any way I can serve another person, whether that's just as simple as opening a door, or just complimenting them on their clothing selection for the day, or their hairstyle or their hat style, um, whatever it is, just any way I can help them. I love to help people.
Dude, I love it. And so you said the word locked a lot. What would you do if you flew into a mastermind meetup too late and you were locked out of a house?
I mean,
So
might have
hold
came
on.
close to
So
that.
people listening understand this. I mentioned earlier, Ethan's in the Skeleton Key Mastermind, and he ended up having to fly in pretty late because he had some things to do at home. And so he got there after everybody was asleep, and he could not get into the house. And so, what did you end up doing until we all woke up in the morning at like 6 or whatever time it was?
Yo, I was locked in. I was locked in. So I took a little stroll down the road, took a little jog over to the gym, and they're open 24 hours. We got a nice pump in, and then we headed over to, actually, no, I lie. Went over to Wawa, got a little bit of an energy drink and food to power the workout over the gym, then came back over to Chick-fil-A, and then Jana came and picked me up to go back to the house.
But like
That
here,
was my night.
by the way, we all everybody was laughing about it the next day except for you because you just wanted to sleep. But with that being said, I wanted to bring it up because of m how many people would go, I'm up late, all I want to do is sleep. Let me go to the gym, right? It's really about staying true to like what is feeding my soul at this moment. I have no control over this thing right here, but I can control this, right? And I think that there's so much power in this idea of control the controllables, forget about the rest, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's something that you have really mastered. It's probably why you've been able to scale Detail Shop so quickly. Like there's a lot of great things that you do that I think is almost has become second nature to you that we don't acknowledge it enough, right? Like you're really really good at you come across as a laid back guy because all you're doing is I worry about what I can worry about and the rest I'm going to let go because that the like and I'm sure you say something along the lines of the rest is in God's hands or whatever the case may be, right? And so I think that that's such a beautiful way to look at why you've mastered so much of this success. It's a locking in and going, this is what I control. That's what I'm going to control. And I'm going to control it at a high level. I'm going to deliver at a high level. And I think that that's super important, man. So I want to ask you this question too. I want you to picture that you are at the end of your life and you're surrounded by your family and your loved ones and you've lived a successful life. But everything you've built, whether it's the businesses, all your future visions, because I know you have a ton of them, all these things, they're wiped off of the face of the planet. They're not going to be remembered. And you can only be remembered for one sentence. What would you want that sentence to be?
it's a big question
It
because
is.
you've taken everything that you've ever lived for and you just remember for one thing. It would have to definitely run back to my faith of it would be being a servant leader to everyone I encountered and my entire life glorified God. That's probably two sentences, but could do a conjoining sentence.
Yo, yeah, we'll put a comma instead of a period.
Right.
And by the way, I was terrible at sixth grade English, so I don't know where commas and periods belong anyway. So you're perfectly good. Uh,
Sweet. It's a run
no,
on
dude,
sentence.
yes. And so obviously, you have the detail shop, you're working on doing a couple other things. Where do you see it going in the future? What's your future vision?
Oh man. I don't know if I can expose all of it,
Yeah,
but
don't
we
like it,
definitely
just
have to.
expose where
Oh yeah,
your mind is, where you're dreaming big.
sure. So we're gonna definitely run up the detailing world, um, whether that's through very nice cars, which key thing is my favorite car is a Corvette. So if you see me running up the Corvette industry, that's why. Um, so just running through honestly across the world, whether that's on the stage and speaking and impacting lives that way, or if it's at a car event and you see me at a huge car meet with over 1,000 cars, that's where I'll be, or in the car racing. So
I love it, man. I can't wait to your first car race because I want to be there. I want to be your biggest cheerleader in the audience. Excuse me, because I know that's a big vision for you. That's a big dream. Um, by the way, my apologies to everybody listening. Battling a cold. I'm fighting through this conversation. Um, dude, I'm excited for your future, dude. But how do people get a hold of you? How do they work with you?
absolutely. So shoot me over a message on Instagram at Ethan D Lasher, or just friend me on Facebook, shoot me a message. I'd love to connect with anyone that, whether that's on faith, whether that's car detailing, or just about cars or life in general. I'm happy to give a listening ear and chat.
And I want to give you a shout out really quick. Like you're the biggest cheerleader for everybody else, man. You know, our community, Berks County is big, but it's a small community in a sense. And you truly cheer on and champion your friends and other people in business. And you do it selflessly. And I think that that's such a superpower for sure. But I wrap up every single interview with the same question. And since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question for you is what is your biggest moment of growth?
I thought long and hard about this because I know you ask it every single podcast. And it was either going to be the moment where my mentor, well, later mentor came up to me and, that turned the whole thing. But honestly, it was becoming a husband and living that out and actually living out becoming a husband because you're no longer just focusing on like your wants and needs. It's like, no, I actually got to take this other person into consideration. And that has definitely been the most growth. And even to this day, that's why I said the biggest growth moment because it's still going. So we're still here.
I love it, man. And so, like, I think it's funny whenever I sit down and talk with you, so one thing people don't realize, and you might realize because you spent so much time together, as people are talking, I'm paying attention, but my mind is also curating what's the story here? What are we spinning? Like, why is this connection in line? What kind of impact can we do together? What's the thing? And I think the beautiful part about your journey and my journey, they're so different from one another, right? Like, you got married at what, 18?
19.
19. So 19 years old. I got married at 34, right? Like your first successful business launched when you were 20. Mine launched my first successful business. I'd had failed businesses before, launched when I was 31, right? Everybody's path and journey is different, but it doesn't mean your paths don't cross. It doesn't mean you can't make an impact together. I'm excited to continue to do things with you in the future. You just crushed it on the stage at Growth Now Summit Live. By the way, on the recording of this, the event hasn't happened yet, but it's coming out the week after. And I know that he's going to crush it on the stage and one of the panels throughout the day. And you know, I'm excited to see the future stages in your life, whether it is speaking on stage or racing cars or being the go-to guy in the Corvette detailing business. Like all these things are literally in your grasp already. And I'm really excited to see what you build, man. It's an honor to be your friend. It's an honor to do this journey with you. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey and your wisdom with my audience, man. This is great.
No, absolutely. And honestly, I can't thank you enough. You've been such a great mentor and friend. And I cannot, like, I literally cannot thank you enough. There's not enough words that I can say thank you. So thank you, Justin. And I appreciate you, man.